the nationals, psych, and then also on families. And you mentioned it, gambling can have one of those effects. What is it to be a responsible gambler? Some people say that, they've spent all their money and then they use the last of their last just to perhaps make some more. And when it comes to a big sporting event, it is a betting hub. I've now joined by the CEO of the National Gambling Board, Baby Tyawa. Baby, how do you recognize when somebody's actually got a gambling problem?
Thank you very much for the invitation. I think what we have always been doing is identifying people who do spend money when they don't have, or a person who goes back to try and gain money when they had lost that money, or use the money that they would be using for school, for fees, for paying their debts, to try and actually get more money, yet they go into more debt.
We're on the eve of the Africa Cup of Nations. Do people actually bet on these soccer matches, and can it become a problem?
Yes, indeed. Actually, sports betting in South Africa has increased over time. Often it was horse racing. The revenue has exceeded horse racing. Sports betting is also an international phenomenon. And you will realize, I don't know if you've read a lot, 2010 World Cup, the revenues for sports betting increased. But I must emphasize that in South Africa, sports betting is legal when it's operated by people who are registered, companies that are registered in South Africa. It sits in the laws, in the Act of the National Lotteries. It doesn't sit in the National Gambling Act. However, we as regulators of gambling, because it's got the gambling side of it, we have to regulate it, and we do that through the provincial boards of gambling.
So if people are unaware of whether they're getting involved in a betting thing that is actually legal or not, where can they actually find out?
They can go onto the NGB website, they can go onto the Gauteng Gambling Board or the other provinces. Easy thing is to go onto the National Gambling website. You will find turf sports, sports betting. Those are some of the bookmakers that are actually registered in South Africa.
And then when gambling goes bad, usually it's the families that are the first to pick it up. But where can you go for help, and how do you approach this thorny issue?
For about 10 years now, the country has got what we call the National Responsible Gambling Program. It has an office in Cape Town. However, they offer counseling services 24/7 throughout the country, and there is a counseling free line. The number is 0800 006 008. It's a free call. Call that number and register, or actually raise it if a secondary person. It can be as a third party. You can actually raise a concern around somebody who is a gambler.
And if you are that third party that is raising an issue, what kind of support does the National Gambling Board offer for those third parties to kind of assist in helping somebody that may have gone a bit wayward when it comes to gambling?
There is counseling that's offered throughout the country. If you call that number and you ask to speak to a counsellor, you are actually referred to a counsellor immediately. And in fact, it's 7 days, 24 hours. So it's a free line. You can actually pick up a call and say that you do identify somebody who has a problem, or you yourself needs to speak to a counsellor. There'll always be a psychologist. I must also hasten to say that Cape Town University has got a clinic where compulsive gamblers can actually ask to be put in and actually be given psychological support over a period of time. The last thing is that we do have something we call exclusions. If you feel that you want to exclude yourself, you approach a provincial gambling board, complete the forms, and you exclude yourself from all types of gambling, including sports betting.
How big is this problem in South Africa?
I must be honest with you, we've done research. In South Africa, we're sitting at about 1.3% of compulsive gamblers. And by compulsive gamblers, I really mean out of a population of, 51 million, it's only 20% of the South African people who gamble on a regular basis. So it's quite minimal. However, we are very cautious. This whole festive season, we've been running a campaign of public awareness on negative impacts of gambling in South Africa, because we know that we've got 15 million people who are on social grants. So we do worry that sometimes some of those people might use the little money they have and actually lose it and exacerbate their problems at home.
When we speak about those that are gambling, What has your research shown you about the different income groups and those that are and aren't gambling?
We've realized that the LSM5 upwards are the ones who really do gamble because they have disposable cash, and also because of proximity. Rural areas, deep rural areas, there's very less gambling there. Yet, at this point in time, we haven't cross-tabulated and assessed whether do those who gamble also use social grant money. We don't have validity of statistics in that area. However, we do know for a fact that a lot of people who gamble are those who have disposable cash, and often from LSM5 upwards, nothing from LSM1 to 2.
What are some of the tips that the National Gambling Board offer people for responsible gambling?
We always say, do not gamble what you cannot afford. Do not dispose money. Take money that is for uniform, for your debts, and try and go and generate more money to try and pay your debts. Don't ever think that gambling will assist you to pay your debts. It will not. It will get you deep into your debts. If you have problems, please dial 0800 006 008. It's a free counseling line.
Are you expecting a spike in gambling during the Africa Cup of Nations?
Yes, we do. Remember that one of the elements of gambling is it's a game, it's entertainment. And sports brings in a dual benefit. It becomes entertainment because you can bet on anything. You can bet on Manchester against Liverpool, you can bet on horses, you can bet on a whole range of things. And we do know now during AFCON that there's going to be an increase. But we're saying balance it. Enjoy the game, enjoy gambling, know when you're losing, detect when you're getting into problems, and stop.
Sometimes it's just a matter of swallowing that pride pill, really, for a lot of gamblers. Thank you very much. That's Baby Tyawa, the CEO of the National Gambling Board. We'll be back here